The following Patreon episode is brought to you by our patrons over at patreon.com/addressing Gettysburg. Here to tell you why it's important to become a patron is our favorite guest, Cam Mallow. Cam, why should they become a patron?
It's important to help bring more new episodes.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks, Cam. So if you want to become a patron, go to patreon.com/addressing Gettysburg and become one today. We thank you in advance.
So I want to thank everybody for coming again tonight. It looks like this is the biggest turnout we've had this year. I thought Jenny Wade would be the biggest turnout. Oh, you know what? Some people complained to me. Well, many people complained to me because they said that I never said who shot Jenny Wade in the program. So, I know some of you attended that program. So if somebody asked you, and maybe you've been asked too, well, who shot Jenny Wade? So, I wanted to explain this because I meant to explain this at the end of last week's program. But one of the best stories that I heard when I was younger, there was this a person lived on Baltimore Street here. She was a park ranger, but she actually had a seance. And they contacted Jenny Wade's mother. And in the seance, Jenny Wade's mother said that she murdered Jenny Wade. Because Jenny was pregnant. And the disgrace that would have brought on the family was too much. Now, like all the other problems the family had didn't bring any disgrace on the family. Like the father being in the insane asylum. But actually, my favorite discussion about this is the fact that, I don't know if you realize it, but Jenny Wade was really good friends with Julia Culp, who was Wesley Culp's sister. And in the winter of, I guess it was the fall of 1862, Jenny Wade accompanied her sister Julia, and they actually went to Virginia and visited Wesley. And while they were there, Jenny met Robert E. Lee. And she had sent a letter to Robert E. Lee a few weeks before the Battle of Gettysburg. And this letter apparently was the reason that Lee invaded Pennsylvania. He captured Gettysburg, sent marksmen to the edge of the town, and had her knocked off. Later, a letter came to light that she was pregnant with Lee's baby. Okay. So, I would say that any story that you want to tell to people who ask that question, who shot Jenny Wade, is a proper answer to it. Now, I wanted to mention here at the beginning that next week is Valentine's Day / Super Bowl Sunday, and we will not do a program. And the following week is President's Day weekend. And both of those weekends, the Farnsworth House is already booked, so we can't do programs the next two weekends. But I do have a program at the end of February, which I have not figured out or decided what it's actually going to be yet. But I'll start advertising it in a timely fashion. But this tonight's program is something I like to call the other round top. And maybe you noticed on Facebook a couple months ago, Gary posted a video of us giving a tour of Big Round Top in like 1991 or something like that. And so, and we, being aware of the fame of Little Round Top, we call it the other round top. I was going to put the video in here, I should have. And, the intro theme is me holding up a transparency that says the other round top in front of Big Round Top with the good, the bad, and the ugly theme in the background. So the first thing I'd like people to know about Big Round Top is it wasn't called Big Round Top. It didn't get that name until like the 1880s. And, even though you might see it occasionally in the first 20 years after the battle, it's not really popularized right away. And it's always referred to as Round Top. This is an 1863 photograph published in this format by the Tyson brothers in August of 1863. And we have this photograph, and they published about 30 photographs that year, and they did publish a photograph of Little Round Top. But Little Round Top was not called Little Round Top. I think the first reference to Little Round Top as a place name may be like Edward Everett's speech. Now, we argue about this letter and that letter, because in the official reports, there are mentions of Little Round Top. But every time I go to the National Archives and look at the original official reports that are printed in the official reports in the 1880s, the original ones don't say Little Round Top. So the ones that do are written later, like Joshua Chamberlain's falsified official report. It was actually written in the 1880s. That calls it Little Round Top. But it's called a variety of things. But you can see in this photograph it's called Granite Hill near Round Top. Now, what I think is interesting, after Little Round Top becomes a thing, and people call it Little Round Top, it's still not called Big Round Top. It's called Round Top and Little Round Top. But the term big doesn't come about until much later. And I just would like you to know that. But oftentimes, Big Round Top is referred to Round Top, or it's referred to as the Round Tops. So they sometimes do, in early accounts, mention them both, but they just put an S on Round Top. So here's that awesome Tyson Brothers view looking across the Valley of Death. We're on the Wheatfield Road, and this view again is taken in July of 1863, we believe, but published in August of 1863. In 1865, the GBMA printed certificates of membership for their organization, the Gettysburg Battlefield Memorial Association, and on the certificate they had this illustration, and the illustration said Round Top and Granite Hill for Little Round Top. So you can find that. And here's this is from the Adams Sentinel in 1865. And it talks about the elegant design on the GBMA memberships if you buy one. And they have a portrait of Reynolds and a portrait of Meade. And beneath, on the left, is a view of Culp's and McKnight's Hill, which is Stevens Knoll. And then seen from Redanel Cemetery Hill. And on the right is a view of Granite Spur, Round Top, and Houck's Hill. Of course, Devil's Den isn't known by that name either at that time, but they're calling the area around it Houck's Hill because John Houck, that lived on Baltimore Street, owned Devil's Den at the time of the battle. So I think that's kind of interesting. Sometimes these early usages of names get kind of forgotten in the bigger scheme of things. Now I wanted to mention that Big Round Top was used as a local landmark in surveying and in deeds. And I actually wanted to put it in the program, but I couldn't figure out what I did with it. I have an early survey of Big Round Top, which is referred to as Daniel McKnight's Hill. Emanuel Bushman, who wrote stories about the terminology of Devil's Den and Round Top, he actually mentions it in his early childhood. It was called Sally McPeak's Hill. And her father, Daniel McPeak, owned the hill for a while. On the Manor of the Max survey, it showed as Adam Lynn's Hill. And this survey was done in 1867. So early on, people are referring to this hill by various names. The first mention that I can find where it's actually called Round Top, I must have put them in different order. Here it is. This is an 1848 article from the Star and Banner. And in it they talk about a hunting party in town who captured an eagle 7 feet between the tips of the wings on Round Top. And apparently they captured the eagle live, and they have it in the cage. You can go see it. They were after possums. And so there in the paper, they do have a mention of Round Top. And you can find it mentioned in early accounts in the newspapers, throughout the early newspapers. Here, someone has been trespassing upon Hugh Scott's woodlot on Round Top in Cumberland Township and cutting wood. I should mention that Round Top is not an unusual name for a hill. And there are two other Round Tops in our area. One of them, Round Hill, is often called Round Top, and that's up off of 234, just outside of Hampton on the way to York Springs. Round Hill, sometimes known as Round Top. And of course, the area where you can go skiing up there towards Mechanicsburg, Round Top. So basically, it's a big, round hill, Round Top. And the owner of Little Round Top at the time of the battle is actually co-owned by Hugh Scott and also by William Gwynn, I believe his name is. And William Gwynn died before the battle, so it's in the heirs. It's owned by Hugh Scott and the heirs of William Gwynn, or was it John Gwynn? Anyway, it's in my Devil's Den book if you want to look at it in more detail. But here's an 1857 notice in the paper by Hugh Gwynn Scott. And Hugh Gwynn Scott, I think you might have a photograph of him. Do you remember that Hugh Gwynn Scott is like the great-great-grandfather of Mary Ruth Collins on one of her sides?
Tim, what about the Stony Hill thing with Round Top? Yes, I'll have to. Remember that shadow box I had that says Stony Hill?
Sometimes Stony Hill's a reference for Devil's Den in his early accounts by Weaver. There's Weaver photographs.
But
I don't remember.
Round Top, you told me.
Who knows what I said? Stony Hill, Little Round Top. I would say that, people are, one of the things that's really interesting about our battlefield is after the battle's over, people give names to things that didn't have names before. So then,
that shadow box was made in 1863 for the Sanitary Commission, so that's one of the first things. And you told me it was a reference to Little Round Top.
Probably.
Yeah.
So I've seen all kinds of references to Round Top in the official reports, like Sugarloaf, or what's another one that comes to mind? And of course, they're calling it Weeds Hill early on. John Batchelder would prefer we call Little Round Top Weeds Hill in honor of the general that was killed there in the fighting. So, I think the basic thing is people are trying to give a name to something that doesn't really have a name. And then there's a letter by a soldier in Anderson's brigade written after the battle where he talks about Devil's Den. But clearly in the letter, he's talking about Little Round Top. And then there's a drawing in Benson Lawsing's book that was done in 1865, and the book was published in 1867, of the Curious Rock Formation on Little Round Top. And it says Devil's Den in the caption. So I think early on, it wasn't really, the names that we take for granted today were not as commonly used. And I guess that's my point. But here is the Warren map of Big Round Top. And I don't know if you can tell because it's not, it all blends together. But I wanted to point out that the height of Big Round Top, the height of Big Round Top is 666.0 feet. So Big Round Top is 666 feet. Now we know that in 1868 or 1869, when they did the elevation here on the Warren map, they had not connected elevations all the way to the sea. And it wasn't done until the 1880s. And when they did it in the 1880s, they realized that Big Round Top was 785 feet. And that the elevations on the Warren map are all 120 feet off. So one of the things I like to do for fun is when I pick up a book or a map book, I look to see what elevations they're using. Are they using the Warren map, or are they using the actual true elevation today in their book? Of course, it depends on what map they copied it from, since they don't have any original maps. So now here's an interesting topic I thought I'd bring up right away. And, This is a Weaver stereo view. And you can see at the bottom it says on Round Top. And there are quite a number of views in 1867 of rocks on Round Top. Now, what's interesting about them is that, in stereo, you put the view in the stereo with the rocks and the trees, and you really get an awesome idea of the 3D, the depth of, the rocks. I know that Frasinito, just the other day, he was complaining about it again, that Weaver series and the Tyson Brothers stereo series, they're boring. There's a bunch of photographs of rocks and trees. And of course, I love that. Having been a little kid with a Viewmaster and loving to look at things in 3D. Because it really brings out the 3D. You got the foreground and the middle ground and the background. And the cameramen are not recording images of famous scenes on the battlefield. They're recording images of rocks and trees with bullet holes in them for our enjoyment. But the Weavers series has 3 views in it of this particular rock on the back side of Big Round Top. And here I'm going to show, here's a close-up of it with a party of visitors on top of the rock having a picnic. You can kind of see there. And here's the back of this photograph. Oh, okay, no, not yet. Here's another one of the same rock. And of course, I've been to the rock. I know the rock well. And here's the back mark now. Well, I hope it comes up. What did I do wrong? Too many buttons. So, one of the things, and I think that obviously using racist terms was more prevalent back then. It doesn't make it right. But here's my point in this story. In Emmer B. Cope's diary, he actually mentions when he's brought in by the War Department that on the backside of Little Round Top, he walks around and he says someone points out to him a rock which looks like a colored woman wearing a bonnet. And of course, the Gettysburg National Military Park was very aware of the fact that people had been using this derogatory term to call that rock, or to describe that rock. So you know what the park did? And I think this is genius. The park, in 1895, took a photograph of the rock, and they captioned it, "The Sphinx." And then they started telling everybody that on the backside of Big Round Top, there is a rock that looks like the Sphinx of Egypt. And this is a photograph of the rock from the top of Big Round Top. They actually cleared trees away to the rock so everybody could see it. And suddenly, everybody was calling it the Sphinx. And I would say that this is what you might say they were being politically correct in 1895. And being politically correct is not a new thing. They're doing it then. Isn't that fascinating? And here is from the scrapbook of one of Will's daughters, the Sphinx, Big Round Top. And this is a 1900 photograph. And of course, the Sphinx is a formation that, I have been on top of. I have climbed to the top of it. Yeah, I don't think... and I'm sure most of the people in this room know this. Here's a modern photograph I took of it not too long ago. And I think it was, excuse me for the listeners if I get the date wrong, the podcast, but I believe it was August 11th that someone noticed after a storm that a tree had fallen and the Sphinx is no more. So this rock formation that literally had been there for millions of years was destroyed by tree. Well, I don't know the exact date that the rock, because you know it's under the Earth's surface.
150 or so would be.
Yeah. Well, it was formed under the Earth's surface, and slowly soils eroded away around it and exposed this rock in that fashion. But it literally had been there for millions of years, and I'm told it was an ash tree, and we should have realized it was a blight on the ash trees. I guess we don't have like a person in charge of making sure trees don't knock down our rock formations. And that's one of the things that I would say about Devil's Den, for instance. You know, at Devil's Den, we have that table rock that is barely resting on the rock below it. And one day, that rock will roll off the rock below it. It will happen. It's a scientific certainty. It's just a matter of when, you know. And I think, you know, I'm very conscious of things like that. And, you know, somebody had texted me and said, hey, you know the Sphinx fell? And Gary and I, you see Gary in the background of the photograph? Gary is beside himself. So we went, Gary happened to be in town that day. I got that text. And so we went out to see it right away. And that's why Gary did a whole video about it. Because you have to do a video about it, you know Gary. So let's just talk a little bit about the fighting on Big Round Top. Big Round Top plays a role in the fighting. And of course, on July 2nd, the Southern Army swing up and over the summit of Big Round Top on their way to Little Round Top. Do you see in this map published by that was sold at the Park Service in the 1970s, it says 666 feet? They should have known by the 1970s, don't you think? But in William C. Oates' book, of course he's the colonel of the 15th Alabama, on his book about the Civil War, which I think was published in 1904, he says that the right flank of the 15th Alabama passed over the summit of Big Round Top where the observation tower now stands. So he describes it specifically. And, you know, they came over Big Round Top, the Southern Army, they charged down Big Round Top, they fought around the base of Little Round Top, and they retreated back up to the summit of the hill. They didn't stop on the summit of the hill, and they ended up retreating to the other side of Big Round Top. And then the Union Army occupied Big Round Top that night. 3 units, the 20th Maine, the 5th Pennsylvania Reserves, and the 12th Pennsylvania Reserves occupied Little Round Top on the night of July 2nd. And on the morning of the 3rd, other units from the 5th Army Corps, and eventually units from the 6th Army Corps, occupied Big Round Top. This is the Elliott Burial Map, and you can see they show trenches built by the Union Army going across the top of Big Round Top. This is a map from Battles and Leaders of the Civil War, the section on Farnsworth Charge. And you actually can see they show you the units that were positioned on top of Big Round Top. And if you see Round Top, and then you see the 5th Pennsylvania Reserves, the 12th Pennsylvania Reserves, and then you can see other units like the 83rd Pennsylvania and 20th Maine, and the units all the way down the hill from Tilton and Schweitzer's brigade, and as well as Fisher and Vincent. So you can see it's pretty well occupied on July 3rd. And there's a continuous line of battle from the summit of Big Round Top all the way down the valley and across the Little Round Top on July 3rd. And the Southern Army are positioned in the edge of the woods not far away. And you probably know that the Southern units, and on this map you see at the bottom, the 15th Alabama and the 47th Alabama, they built a stone defense in front of them. And you can still walk that wall and find that stone defensive position that they built. And then, of course, on the evening of late afternoon of July 3rd, Union cavalry units under the command of Elon J. Farnsworth actually charged out from the Union line, swung around behind the Confederate defensive position, and it was the 15th Alabama, and I don't know if you can see very well on this map, right there, that actually changed position to swing around and face Farnsworth as he was coming back through and shot and killed Farnsworth. Near what we tend to refer to as the D-shaped field. Oh, I don't have that one. I thought I had a close-up of the D-shaped field. Oh, maybe that's coming up. Okay. Now, a couple things I wanted to point out about the battle. And I point this out because we've read in the paper that anytime soon, Little Round Top will be closed by the National Park Service for a long time. Maybe, they say like a year and a half, don't they? So we'll see how long it's closed. And they're going to rework the path system on top of the hill. But also, the articles recently said they're going to do some tree clearing. And I have really been curious about this. I should probably send some images to the park that I collected because I wonder what they know about where the trees were at the time. Because we don't have a lot of images of big Round Top and Little Round Top immediately after the battle, and a lot of resources. We do have the Warren map of the battle. But the Warren survey of the battlefield, one of the big problems with it is it makes rocks and trees look a lot alike. And then also, you can't really tell if a group of trees is trees or if they're bushes. And it's caused some problems over the years in clearing the battlefield to the way it appeared if we don't have images. But I want to point out this. This drawing here that I'm showing is an 1867 drawing. This appears in a book by John Batchelder on Pickett's charge, what he actually called Longstreet's assault. And this drawing, I actually got this engraving from the John Batchelder auction. Now, I don't think I own this. Is this one of the things I sold here? So Eric Dorr owns this original drawing today, this engraving that John Batchelder used. But it came from the Batchelder auction. It's used by Coddington in his book of Study and Command, this exact copy that he shot a photograph of because he visited Batchelder's relatives. And it's also used in the Time Life series. And they got their copy out of the book Batchelder wrote on Longstreet's assault. So anyway, the point is, it's done from about 1867. We are at the base of Little Round Top, on the slopes of Big Round Top, and we're looking across the side of the hill. And I don't know if you can tell in this drawing, but there's the 20th Maine with their bayonets fixed, getting ready to charge down the hill. But you can see that, according to this drawing, the whole front half of the hill is cleared. And in this drawing, the 44th New York mining would be somewhere in here. So my inclination is to believe that at the time of the battle, there were no trees on the west side of Sykes Avenue. So if you drive up Little Round Top on the road today, there were trees on the left, but there were no trees on the right. It was open all the way where the bend in the road is. It was open. And, we have some other indications of this. Here's an early picture of the Vincent Fell marker, and looking out across towards Devil's Den, and there's no trees in front of it. That was not surrounded by trees early on. Here's a view from near the top of the hill, looking across the area of the Vincent Fell marker, and you can see there's some heavy trees out there, and then there's the slopes of Big Round Top. But this area on the side of Little Round Top was much more open. I'm not sure when this view was recorded, but probably the 1880s. Now, and again, you can kind of see there's some trees, single trees out here along the slopes, but the heavy woods don't really start until you get to the bottom of the hill, to the base of Big Round Top. Now this next one, I hope that it's the next one since I'm going to talk about it before I show it. I just showed it as the introduction. So I love to tell this story because, of course, much to Gary's chagrin. So Gary Edelman, were part of a team that History Associates put together. And of course, Gary worked for History Associates to gather all the photographs for the National Military Park Museum. And we each had different places we were supposed to look for photographs. And I think in the end, it was something like 800 photographs that we got together for the park. And we had to go to the places where the photographs were held. We had to take a scanner there. We had to make scans of the original photographs in high resolution. There wasn't any way to search this stuff like that in high resolution on the internet at that time. But I was using the internet. I was looking at the photographs that they had at the Rochester Museum and Science Center, and I saw this image. And the caption of the image was Round Top Mountain, Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. And Gary had seen the photograph, but he just thought it was Harpers Ferry. And of course, it was not. I recognized some of the rocks, as I am prone to do. It is Little Round Top looking to Big Round Top in 1882. So on the right, there are some distinctive rocks, and the 44th New York Monument sits right there. This is from the 44th New York Monument down towards the path leading to the 20th Maine Monument. And this is a year before they put in Sykes Avenue. And we're in the bus parking spot. This is where when you come up the hill and park on the left, we're in the middle of the bus parking lot, and we're looking towards Big Round Top. And there are no trees on the side of Little Round Top there, just as I always suspected we would discover. Now, of course, historians might say, well, Tim, this is an 1880s photograph, and obviously it was wooded at the time of the battle, and then they clear-cut the trees afterwards, and that's why they're not in this photograph. So, that's possible. But, if you compare what we do have, here's a photograph from the top of Little Round Top, a Brady photograph at the top of Little Round Top looking towards Big Round Top. And again, look down there. There's no trees coming out around the front side of the hill or on the side of the hill. Everything we have from that area indicates it's a little more open than we're led to believe. I suspect it's something like this. Ephraim Hanaway, who owned the front of Little Round Top, had clear-cut that part of the hill. But Jacob Weicker, who owned the backside of Big and Little Round Top, did not clear his land. So it was probably cleared around the property boundary. Again, here's another view taken right after the battle. And you can see there are scattered trees along the side of Little Round Top, but there's no major woodlot to the left where the 44th New York Monument would be in the town and the woods today. Also, we have this 1863 drawing from December, Frank Leslie's, done for the Gettysburg Address, and it shows very accurately Little Round Top, don't you think? Maybe not. But look, you can look across Little Round Top and you can see the summit of Big Round Top. Do you see there's a flag on the summit of Big Round Top in this December 1863 view? Oh, I found this view just a couple weeks ago. Well, actually, Andrew found it. In case Andrew won't listen to your show, though, so I probably don't need to thank him. Andrew discovered it from a lady at an upstate New York Historical Society sent this to us. This view is 1893, and look, we're standing near the edge of Sykes Avenue, heading up Little Round Top, and you can see Vincent. The 1889 83rd Pennsylvania Monument, and the 1893 44th New York Monument on top of the hill. But have you ever thought about the fact of how open that area was for many, many, many years? So, again, I don't know what the park is thinking when they go ahead and they do this clearing project, or how far they want to strip the woods back, or even on the other side of Warren Avenue, we know it's open for a good distance. But, this is not easy stuff to figure out. Now, as far as the other side of the hill goes, the tree line is farther back also, where the D-shaped field is in a Vermont Cavalry unit's monument. One thing that's interesting, Warren Avenue, which was put in 1902, 1903, that avenue has created an artificial boundary of the tree line. Today, if you go down Warren Avenue towards Devil's Den, you used to be able to do that. On the right, it's open. And on the left, it's wooded. And why? Because the road's there and they just made that the boundary. But that's not where the boundary of the tree, that's not where the tree line was before that road was there. The tree line was farther back. And South Confederate Avenue has kind of done the same thing for this area. There's trees on the right and it's open on the left. But there was a photograph in the 1980s in an article by Kathy George in Blue and Gray magazine on the cavalry fights at Gettysburg about Farnsworth Charge, since we're in the Farnsworth house, talking about Farnsworth. And the monument is supposedly near the spot where he was killed. I don't think anybody thinks he's killed at that exact spot. But the monument to the 1st Vermont Cavalry. Now, this photograph was taken from up at the base of Big Round Top, looking across the 1895 Avenue towards the D-shaped field. Look beyond the Vermont Cavalry Memorial. Look how open it is all the way to Seminary Ridge. Here, the park had an imperial of this view that Kathy got her photograph from that article. And I saw it at the park library years ago. But I didn't have a phone with me. I couldn't make a copy of it. I made a Xerox of it. And I went out and found the location of this view. Of course, there's some rocks in the view. I actually found that rock. And the one I had was cut off, so I didn't see that big rock over there. That would have made it much easier. But I found that rock. We're on the west side of Big Round Top, and the steep part of the hill is directly behind us. And when you came off the steep part of the hill, you're looking across the area there. It's all wooded. And then, of course, you get to the D-shaped field where the Vermont Cavalry Monument is, and then it's open all the way across there. Now, today, the park kind of cleared that area of the D-shaped field, but they didn't want to clear beyond the D-shaped field to get this view. Because on the Warren map, there are these things there that look like bushes or trees. And I guess the park was like, well, even though we have 1880s and 90s photographs showing us that there were no trees there at that time, perhaps it was heavy trees there when they drew the Warren map, and then they were cut down later. So we get into this, are you sure it wasn't wooded at the time? But, so in that area, the park has erred on the side of caution by leaving a heavy woods right there where I strongly suggest that there were no woods. So, I think we're in an impasse with that until unless we can find some other evidence. But here you go. So from the very base of Big Round Top, you could stand there and you could see all the way across the Slider Farm. And of course, what do you think the view from the tower was like at that time? And then here's the rocks. And again, I know you guys don't have access to this photograph. How many people own the Blue and Gray magazine from the 1980s that has the Gettysburg edition that has the cavalry battles?
Of course you do.
Good. We'll go into that and find the photograph I'm talking about. I think it's in that one. Of course, they did one on July 1st, July 2nd, July 3rd, and cavalry operations. Pretty sure it's in the cavalry one. And find that photograph and go out and find these rocks. It's awesome. Now here's a view today. I couldn't go all the way back to the rocks, but I just went back a little bit to show you that it's heavily wooded in an area that there's every evidence was open at the time of the battle. So here's on the war map the D-shaped field. You probably know this, and I'm going to show the road in a moment. But the original 1890 South Confederate Avenue did not have the course that it does today. It had some hairpin turns on it. So in the 1930s, they tore out the original War Department Avenue and they put in the modern avenue. And when they did that, the workers just came over, tore down this stone wall on the D-shaped field, which of course here shows it has a rider fence on it, and used all the rocks to fill in the road base. Or, I guess some people would argue that they didn't have a stone fence on that, they tore the logs down, so there's no fence there today. And they built the road right on top of the D-shaped field. Oh, I don't have one of that yet. So here's a nice view of Big Round Top. We're actually on the hill south of Big Round Top that sometimes we call Bushman Hill, because it was owned by the Bushman family. And there's a monument to the 5th New York Cavalry on Bushman Hill here. And there's a monument to Elders Battery. What's that? Battery D, 5th U.S. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out. Somebody will correct us on the comments if we're wrong. But Elders Battery, and this photograph is taken from the top of the Bushman Hill, which is not wooded in this photograph, looking down through the Plum Run Gorge. Plum Run passes between the Bushman Hill and Big Round Top. And can you see the tower on Big Round Top in that view? Okay. I don't have any idea why I have that in there. Oh, I guess I do, because I wanted to show that monster rock at the foot of Round Top. You know what else bothers me today? These things bother me.
I bet.
When we come around South Confederate Avenue and we stop at the Big Round Top parking lot, people tell me that that's Big Round Top on the right. But that's not Big Round Top on the left. Wait a minute. Big Round Top goes all the way down the hill to Plum Run. I maintain that you're standing in Plum Run and you take one step up there, you're on Big Round Top. The Big Round Top does not stop at the Big Round Top parking lot. And of course, in this 1867 view, you can kind of see that they're showing you that it continues on down. Okay. Oh, so here's Plum Run. Yeah, I don't know why I put that in there. So I got some more views of Plum Run. We don't need to talk about that anymore. Here is a view from the 1880s, and it's a reenactor. This is not from the battle. Although, in the book, they met at Gettysburg by Edward Stackpole. This view is in it. And the caption is, Union soldier on Little Round Top, looking across to Big Round Top. And I'm sure, I don't have to tell you things like this, but I took my book out there and I looked for that rock. And I found that rock at Devil's Den. So we're not on Little Round Top, we're at Devil's Den, and we're looking up the slope of Big Round Top. Do you see how the trees don't start right away, and the Plum Run Gorge is a lot more open than it is now? Also, the Devil's Kitchen. So the term the Devil's Kitchen is first used in an 1898 tour book, and it's used in this Tipton photograph from 1898, the Devil's Kitchen. And I guess the idea would be that the devil kills, people, eats little kids or kills them at Devil's Den and drags them up to the kitchen to be prepared. But I want you to take notice in this photograph that there are no trees above the Devil's Kitchen. And today, that's in the middle of the woods. See, today, look, you see the Devil's Kitchen, and you look at all the trees in front of it on the way to Little Round Top. It was open between those rocks and Little Round Top at the time of the battle. There's every reason to believe that. Because we have accounts of the Devil's Kitchen in tour books in which it says that this is where Southern sharpshooters were positioned and they were engaged in skirmishing against Little Round Top. Oh, I don't know why I put this in here. 1904. While visiting the battlefield of Gettysburg, Curtis Hoover found at the foot of Big Round Top near the Devil's Kitchen what he thinks is a mini ball. It is the second ball found there, which contains a cork behind which is stored acid. Did you remember that the Confederates are firing poison bullets at the Yankees during the battle? The poison bullet. Do you love this?
Yeah.
People claim this all the time. Let me ask you, is there really any evidence for poison bullets?
So on my Antietam obelisk thing, there's one on there and it says poison ball, Confederate. Those Confederates with their poison bullets. Do you think they're just fancy cleaner bullets that have a cork on them? Love it. Here's an 1867 view, and it says Devil's Den, and this view is the Devil's Kitchen. We've actually lined it up. It's not Devil's Den, it's the Devil's Kitchen. I don't know if I had a modern image. Here's an 1888 view from the Devil's Kitchen looking towards Devil's Den. When I get beyond this. And here is a view from Little Round Top. Now, in this view from Little Round Top, we're on top of the hill, and we're in the breastworks here. But look up there. Do you see that there are low trees and bushes up the side of the hill? But can you clearly see the Devil's Kitchen on top of the hill in 1888, 25 years after the battle? I don't know what people think about when they go to the Devil's Kitchen in the winter. Okay, homework. In the winter here. Go to the Devil's Kitchen, stand on it, and look through the trees, and you can see Little Round Top. And imagine that there's no trees between Little Round Top and the Devil's Kitchen. What a good sharpshooter area that would be during the fighting. Okay, if you can't find the Devil's Kitchen, you're going to have to buy my Devil's Den book just so that you can find the Devil's Kitchen, which I'm sure you can find. Here's an 1898 photograph from the top of the Devil's Kitchen looking to Little Round Top. What more do I have to show you? So there's a violent sharpshooter battle. And I guess the point that I'm showing you here is that the whole area all around Big Round Top, the woods have spread out and grown much more than they were at the time of the battle. So here's a photograph I just showed you of the Valley of Death with Mumper's photographic studio, and look above it in the woods. You see the Devil's Kitchen and how it's right there. And the Southern Army wasn't just at Devil's Den and the Union Army at Little Round Top. They were firing at each other on the third day of the battle all the way across that area. So there you go. Okay, now we want me to stop right there for a moment so we can do our do we have our tickets? Oh, so you put them right here. Okay. So this view we're looking at here is another Weaver view. And if you don't know, Samuel Weaver lived in the town of Gettysburg. And Samuel Weaver, he's related to the Culps, and he's a pretty long time Gettysburg family. His family's around. He lived on West Middle Street, and he actually started a photography studio there in the 1850s. And he had stopped himself taking photographs by the time of the Civil War, but he rented his studio out. And his son was Peter Weaver, and Peter Weaver moved to Hanover, opened up a photographic studio there, and he and his cousin, Hanson Weaver, were a team, and in 1867, they recorded stereo views of the battlefield. We're not exactly sure how many views they recorded, probably around 80, but we know a lot more about them now than we used to. Examples of his photographs
have been found in great numbers. And Sue Boardman collects them, and she has a pretty good collection of them. But this one, this particular view here, I actually discovered at Mel's Antiques. And they wanted $100 for it. And, in that day, $100 for a stereo card seemed like a lot. But so I guess, whoever had it there, I don't think the stand that had it were Civil War buffs or anything like that. They just thought it might be valuable to someone. And I didn't have $100 to spend on it. So I went to Frasinito and said, hey, there's this rare, weird review at the Mel's Antiques. And so he gave me the money to go buy it. And so then he owns it. It's his. This is from his book, Early Photography at Gettysburg. But we are basically at the 16th Michigan Monument in 1867. And we're looking to the Devil's Kitchen would be right up here. Now, we can't see it. It's probably just beyond those trees. But this area is open all the way to Devil's Den. And this is what we come to term the finger-like ridge. And I think the most important thing about a photograph like this is the fact that when the Texas, the 4th and 5th Texas attacked Little Round Top, they came out of this tree line, and then they charged down the hill, across the ravine, then over what is now Warren Avenue, and then up the hill. And I don't know if you guys noticed, I was in a debate with Randy Drees about where the 4th Alabama fought in the Ward Rock. And I don't think that they're taking into consideration that when the fighting for Little Round Top subsided and the Confederates fell back and then they made another assault, they fell back to the edge of the woods, which is not where Warren Avenue is today. It's back across the gorge and then up that hill, much closer to the path between Big Round Top and Devil's Den today. They fell all the way back to that area and then launched the attack from there. And, if we pulled the tree line back a little bit in areas where we know the tree line was farther back, it would give you more of a sense of the attack on Little Round Top than people just coming out of the woods at the bottom of the hill and charging up the hill. But again, these things are not so easy.
So now that stone wall is the road bed for Warren Avenue?
Oh, no. The stone wall right here is out. That's the 16th, near the 16th Michigan Monument. So this top wall, we're on top of there. We're near the castle, I guess. I said we're actually positioned near the castle. And that rock right there is in front of the castle. And then this wall is the 16th Michigan wall. And the 16th Michigan Monument is actually out over there. I'm sorry. And then we're looking down. So, down beyond that is where it drops off and heads across. If you get Bill's book, Early Photography, and you go out, you can find this rock right, this little stone on this rock. And you can see where it is. Yeah, I misspoke there a little bit. Okay, so now let's talk about Big Round Top as a tourist destination. My favorite thing. Memorialization and commercialization. So in this December 1863 view, there's a flag on top of Big Round Top. And there's an article in the paper about this flag. In November, I cut off the date. So in November, you see here it says that on Tuesday afternoon, they unfurled a flag on the summit of Round Top. And this flag flew for some time on and off from the summit of Big Round Top. They actually had a flag up there. And I think it was put up there by the ladies of Montgomery County. And there is some information about this flag at the Montgomery County Historical Society. And someone recently sent me something that there is a book of the holdings of the ladies of Valley Forge and the flag that flew over Big Round Top on the battlefield of Gettysburg was on this list as one of their possessions. But today, no one can find the flag and no one knows where the flag is or what happened to it. But at least for a while, after it flew on Big Round Top for a few years, then they actually had on display at this little historical society not far from Valley Forge. Now, early on, obviously, Union troops built breastworks along the side of Little Round Top. And obviously, units, and if we add up some of the units, we're over 1,000 men walked up and down the side of that hill during the battle behind the breastworks. And when they left, they probably left what looked like a road leading to the top of the hill. And that road became a path put in by the GBMA, and eventually the War Department had a path leading to the top of the hill. Today, we refer to this path put in by the War Department as the Old Veterans Path, because this is how people would get to the top of Big Round Top, until the more modern trail was built in the 1940s. And this path basically started at Little Round Top near the intersection of Warren and Sykes Avenue and South Confederate Avenue. And it went in front of the monument to the 10th Pennsylvania Reserves and the 9th Massachusetts, and if you know where those monuments are today, and then the path started and kind of wound its way up the western slopes of the hill, I guess it is. And you can find this on maps. Like here is Pennsylvania at Gettysburg map from the, I guess this was published in 1904, but you can kind of see the trail to the top of the hill. And here's an 1880s illustration showing Union and Confederate officers ascending Round Top to get a view from the summit. And you can still see what this path is today. This is from the War Department book, the Commission Reports Photographs. I forget what year this photograph is, but the Gettysburg Battlefield Memorial Association simply had a well-worn path that led to the top of the hill. The War Department put in a real path with granite steps. And of course it came right off of a little parking area for carriages on South Confederate Avenue. And you can see right over here to the left, this rock right here is still there, if I have it. Oh yeah. That's that rock right there. And they ripped out the granite steps. So basically, they put this path in 1895. But every once in a while, a tree would fall across the path. And then someone in the maintenance department had to go out and cut up the tree and remove it from the path. Can you imagine the pain in the ass that was? And then once in a while, there was one of the steps came loose, or a tree hit the step, and the step was damaged, and then they had to do some real maintenance to fix the step. So eventually, the Park Service got tired of this. In the 30s, the Park Service took over from the War Department, and they decided, wouldn't it be easier to just rip out all these steps and put in another path that goes up the side of the hill that doesn't have any steps and maybe doesn't require as much maintenance? So they put and I'm being my anti-Park Service self here when I talk about it this way, because I've been around them too long. So they put the path at a totally different, meaningless place. And then they put all these back and forth. So they went up the steepest part of the hill with the new path, and they put in all these switchbacks. And this original path just was a gradual ascent up the long, gentle slope of the hill to the top. And now we have to go twice as far up the switchback all the way to the top. And this path went by monuments that were put in by veterans. It went along the Union line of battle, along the breastworks built by the soldiers. And the new path just haphazardly goes up the hill in no rhyme or reason or fashion. And they thought it was a better idea. But let me talk about that in a minute. So trees fall over the path. Oh, you need a picture of that one? Okay. Are you going to go find that rock? That's Fisher's Brigade tablet. Now, keep in mind that it wasn't in the that was put in the early 1900s, so it doesn't appear in this 1890s photograph. So trees have now fallen across the path. You can still find where the path goes. Here is an awesome 1880s photograph. This is actually when the GBMA had it, before the nice granite steps were in. And I guess the GBMA did put some steps on it prior to that. And let's see if I have a blow-up of it. Okay. So there's in the blow-up of it, you can see kind of two things. There's a guy standing on part of the steps near a large rock. And I like, if you look in the woods behind him, you can see that oddly shaped rock still jutting up. And here's this area today. You can go there, you can find that rock, you can see where those steps were. Is that, who is that? Is that
Charlie. George.
What's his first name? Last name George? He died. No. That's George Pyle. No. George Pyle's alive. That's George Pyle. I was thinking it was the other guy. What was his name? Bob George. It's not Bob George, it's George Pyle. I have to tell. I got the Georges mixed up. But look in this photograph. Can you see that rock up the path behind that? And I got to tell this story. Sometimes my brother comes to the program, my brother Brian. But I got Henry Stewart images in like the 1980s, early 1980s. And I used to drag my brother Brian to the battlefield. And we would go around and hang out at different locations. And I got this photograph of this rock, and Brian was like, I know exactly where that rock is. I climb up that rock sometimes. So he actually found the rock with me just showing him a photograph of it. And of course, this rock is along the path leading to Big Round Top, and you can see by the name it's called Rock on Big Round Top. We, a few years ago, we had a little contest on one of our Facebook pages. I don't remember, maybe it was on mine. But we had people try to come up with a name for the rock. And of course, my friends are like, just grown-up 8th graders. Right. So I think the name we settled on, I forget who came up with it, was the Devil's Boner. But if you want to, again, for homework, you may go out and find this rock today. Okay. Now we have a lot of photographs of this group of rocks that is referred to by William C. Oates as Gibraltar. And if you want to know why he calls it that, you have to read your William C. Oates. But there's this group of rocks up along the side of the hill on the old Veterans Trail, and you can see there's a photograph with a group of people around these rocks. And it's an 1880s photograph. Of course, like I said, the old path went by all these interesting places. You went by monuments put up by the veterans. You went by this place where all these rocks were that people got their photograph on. And today, very few visitors even know where this path is, and just some war buffs that go up the old Veterans Trail. But here, again, a group of pictures. I think I got this from Eric. I got another of your photographs coming up, Eric. But I got this one from Eric. And again, I have some photographs of people on rocks on Little Round Top that I have not figured out where they are yet. I have this one. And then I have this really interesting one here. Boulders on Round Top. He doesn't really help me with his caption very much. But I think I know where this one is. I just haven't been able to line it up exactly yet. But I guess that's Peter Weaver with his dad. That's Samuel Weaver in the picture on the rocks on Big Round Top. Whoop. I hit the wrong button. And again, there's that same group of rocks we were just talking about on the side of the hill. Oh, and Gary, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell this story. The Library of Congress has put more photographs on there, and some in much more higher resolution. But they put some drawings on there, and Gary loves this. This is a drawing by Alfred Woad, I believe, and it says Round Top. And Gary's convinced that this rock formation that sharpshooters were behind during the battle, it's still somewhere on Round Top, and he's looking for this formation. So, if anybody wants to help him find it, I'm sure I'll send it to you. But here's some more photographs from the commission book. They were very proud of the steps that they just built. And again, Gary would be upset for me not remembering this, but I think there's 116 steps that they put in leading up paths to the summit of the hill. And like I said, it goes by the 118th Pennsylvania Monument, the Corn Exchange Monument. You know, the Corn Exchange has 3 monuments on the battlefield, and this is the nicest of the Corn Exchange monuments. And did you ever see a dedication ceremony of the 118th? But look at all these veterans on Little Round Top. And again, that was a unit that fought in the wheat field on July 2nd, but on July 3rd, they were positioned on Big Round Top. Of course, the 10th Pennsylvania Reserves has a monument at the base of Big Round Top. The 9th Massachusetts has a really nice monument on the hill. The 9th Massachusetts was not with Tilton's brigade in the Battle of the Wheat Field on July 2nd. They were on skirmish duty out near Brinkerhoff Ridge on the morning of July 2nd and remained out in that area and did not return to the brigade until the 3rd day of the battle. And so that's why they have their monument there in their 3rd day position. And then 119th Pennsylvania of the 6th Army Corps, this image hangs in the GAR Hall. If you ever saw it hanging there. I think it might be in the basement though, not where you have the guide meetings. But this monument is still there today, and again, it's near the very summit of the hill. And of course, the 20th Maine, from an 1898 photograph, has a monument on Big Round Top, where on the evening of July 2nd, morning of July 3rd, they were positioned on top of the hill. Before, remember, a courier came up and ordered them to a nice, quiet spot in the middle of the line. Here's another this is 1896 photograph, and it shows a tree has fallen. Do you guys know in 1896, like a violent storm hit the battlefield and trees were felled everywhere? From the newspaper, it shows here that they lost 12 trees in Reynolds Grove. I don't know what the other column is. I should have got it. But 120 trees on Culp's Hill. Big Round Top lost 135 trees. And there's a bunch of photographs in the commission reports of all the trees. The roof was blown off the tower at the Bryan House. So, let's talk about the tower. This is from John Batchelder's book in 1873. Gettysburg, What to See and How to See It. The finest view from the summit is towards the south, where the eye stretches away for miles into northern Maryland over an extensive champaign country. I don't know about Champaign in Maryland. And at the very bottom he says, it'll be a shame to cut away the trees, but the public will demand, and all will soon see that there should be an observatory on this mountain, which will afford a magnificent view not only of the battlefield, but the surrounding country. And of course, in 1878, a tower is built on Big Round Top. Here's an article, Observatory. And, you know, I'm thinking it's 1878, but, you know, now my mind is thinking it's not. You know what I didn't do? I didn't write down the dates of these articles when I saved them. So, it's somewhere around that time. Maybe it's 1881. Now I'm forgetting. No? Okay, whatever. I don't remember the date. But you can see, on the 23rd, the tower will be done. Whatever year it is. So the tower is going to be 35 feet high, to clear the tree stops and afford a view of the surrounding countryside. So let's say 1878. So, and then here's an article in the paper where they build the tower, and they carry long timbers up the steep hill, and then there's refreshments, and they build the tower. And we have images of the tower from the 1880s. So there's the tower on the top of Big Round Top, the wooden tower. You can see it there in the image. And we have, this is in the 1880. It's got to be before 1880 then, I think. Now I'm really confused about what date I wrote for the tower. Check that, Eric. We got to figure out the date. But so this is veterans at Gettysburg on top of the Big Round Top Tower, viewing the countryside. And there's an article in the paper about their visit. Traversing the ground to Round Top and reaching the observatory on its top, the strongest expressions of admiration of the charming scene there presented became universal. People loved the tower. Now, eventually, the tower fell in disrepair. And the War Department, when they took over the battlefield, decided that they would build towers too. They built 5 metal towers. The tower on Big Round Top that replaced the wooden tower was 60 feet tall instead of just 35. And you can see this drawing of the tower. Now the tower, to make the long story short, was torn down in 1968. I was never in the tower. So I always like to ask, how many people here were in the Big Round Top Tower? Danny, you must have been in it.
Never.
No? You went up the Big Round Top Tower?
Yep.
When it would have been?
I was here in 64.
64.
10 years old.
64. So nobody else? There's fewer and fewer people that have climbed the tower. Yeah, it's one of those things that you got to say.
Why did they tear it down?
Okay, the articles in the paper, they say they tore it down because the buzzards were roosting in it. And it was, it became a maintenance issue. Did they want to put money into the tower? That's this one.
Oh, that's the steel one?
It became a maintenance issue. And they said, one of the reasons they said they tore it down was nobody was going to it anymore. Very few people went up the new path that they built. So they built a new path in the 1940s to lead to the tower and got rid of the veterans path. And then the new path is steeper and it takes a long time to get there and there's nothing to see along the way. And then people get to the tower and the tower is in a pretty good state of disrepair. Apparently, for a while, they had covered it with wire mesh because the vultures at Big Round Top were roosting in the tower. And so not only... if you went in mating season, it was kind of dangerous to go up there with the vultures.
I didn't actually climb it because it was too much.
It was too much.
Walk.
When you were a kid.
But I want to ask you, often when you read about this, people will drop in the line that, well, the towers were built by the government so that the officers could observe mock battles.
No, I think the towers, the War Department likes to stress that they built it. The military likes to stress the towers were built for the military to observe the battlefield. But really, they were built for tourists. But, the War Department's building them, and when students come to the battlefield, they can climb up in the towers and look out over the battlefield. We often have that issue as tour guides with groups of 8th graders when military groups are in the tower and they refuse to come down, and they won't let my 8th graders go up. They built the towers. They're doing important stuff up there. It's fascinating. But the towers were built, for the battlefield along with the other improvements that were put in there. And the Longstreet Tower is in pretty good shape. And the Culp Hill Tower is in pretty good shape. But, there are maintenance issues. And then here's the issue at the Big Round Top. I'm sure this is the greater issue at the Big Round Top Tower. Do you know that the roads were open 24 hours a day when I was a kid? And when I was driving, I could go on the battlefield anytime I wanted and drive around and park and walk up to the Big Round Top Tower. So kids were having parties in the big round top tower. I'm sort of convinced they wanted the tower. Why did the tower near the college get taken down and made a quarter of it instead of three-quarters? They took three-quarters of it off because it's probably near the college campus and kids are going up in it. What are you gonna climb up in it and chase the kids out? They're just gonna come back a few minutes later. So my favorite story. Well, let me show you the next slide. Oh, so here you can see the tower in a lot of the early views. Again, it was there from 1895, 1878 or so, if you want to talk about the other tower. I'm almost convinced now it's 1881, but
yeah, I can't find
okay. That. But here, here's the tower looking around.
1881.
1881?
Yeah.
Okay, it was 1881, not 1878. That is coming back to me. Hey, it's not like I didn't write about this. I just don't remember what I wrote. So to the left, look at the left of the 44th New York. You can kind of see the tower there. It was something you could see from all over. Here, to give you an idea exactly where the metal tower was, here's the monuments of the 12th Pennsylvania Reserves on the summit of Big Round Top. And here is the entrance to the tower. At the top of the stairs, you see that column that holds the tower up. That column is still there. Whoop, I'm going to talk about that in a moment. Oh, here it is. Can you see up the top of the hill, that column that holds the foot of the tower is still there? So for homework, again, I want you to go to the top of Big Round Top and find the column that's still there that held up the tower. It's fine. Okay, you can. That's good. Now I like this article, and I didn't write down the date. I'm thinking this was the 1930s. The observatory on Big Round Top was the scene of a midnight wedding on Monday. Midnight. They got married at midnight on top of the Big Round Top Tower.
Sounds like it should have been Halloween.
It doesn't explain why they decided to do that, but I'm thinking that that's where they met. Or that something important in their life happened at that tower at midnight. You know? I got to tell you this story. I know this is off-color story. One of my favorite memories is I was in the Plaza restaurant one night in the 1980s, and somebody's asked me a question. They knew I was a tour guide, and somebody's asked me a question about the Big Round Top Tower. And this lady from across the bar, I'm guessing she was in her 80s, maybe late 70s, but so she's borderline 1900. She's across the bar, and she's like, Big Round Top? I lost my virginity in the Big Round Top Tower.
Thanks for sharing.
It was just funny. So again, I think kids partied in the tower a lot. So here are some views from the Big Round Top Tower. Since it was there for so long, you can find views from the tower. Here's 1898 from Big Round Top Tower looking to Little Round Top. Since we can't enjoy the view anymore today. Here we are looking to Devil's Den. Here is a view looking east, so we're looking down at a farm. It's the Weichert farm, but not the one that stood at the time of the battle. You see on the left of the photograph is Howe Avenue and Wright Avenue. And here we are looking back towards a little farther to the left, and you can kind of see this is over here. This would be the Weichert farm where Tilly Pierce was at over there. Yeah. And so, and then here we have one looking out across towards the Confederate line of battle, and you can see that D-shaped field with that 1st Vermont Cavalry memorial in it. And what's interesting is you can also see portion of the earlier road. That road right there is probably a GBMA road. And then in the woods is the 1895 road. And of course now we have a 1930s road. So, we have a series of roads on the battlefield that have been in different places over the years. We got the road system that was here at the time of the battle. Then we have the GBMA roads. And then the War Department roads, and now the Park Service roads. And sometimes they're all in different places. But again, you can see the trees starting to grow up beyond the Vermont Memorial that will, today are just tall trees. Yeah, there's an old road, the old GBMA road. So basically what happened was there were hairpin turns on the War Department roads. That one specifically right there. And again, the roads were not built for automobiles. They were built for carriages. And then all of a sudden we have automobiles. So in the 1930s, the Park Service ripped this road out and put in a road that sort of just bends around this area. And it's in a totally different location than the original roadbed. Here is the CCC working on the pathway leading to the new Big Round Top parking lot. And I think that's the Big Round Top parking lot in the background. And they're working their way down the hill towards Devil's Den. So that they're putting in the path system in the late 30s. And of course, those granite steps today are the only ones that lead to the new path. There's a lot of articles in the paper complaining about the Park Service's new path to the top of the hill even after it is built, early on, because they tore out the more popular Veterans Path to the top. But, basically what happens is a lot less people go to Big Round Top because they don't like the new path. And, it falls into disrepair. There's, it's hard to get to, it's hard to maintain, and the Big Round Top tower comes down. And, if you go out there today and you walk along the path, it still has some issues. Along the base of Big Round Top, I also want to mention we have the Devil's Slipper. Did you ever think about that? We got the Devil's Bath, the Devil's Den, the Devil's Kitchen, the Devil's Slipper. Yeah, well, that one I don't think I'll count. But we have a few early photographs of the Devil's Slipper. And then here is a couple photographs taken on the 1895 War Department Road, the 1890s War Department Road. And that's this photograph. This is a modern image today of that photograph. You might know that 10 years ago, the park put the horse trail on top of the bed, or near the bed, of the old 1895 road in the woods on Big Round Top. So this was once a road, and this today is what it looks like as part of the horse trail. So that's the same spot. And we have a pretty good bunch of views of this rock. And that's the rock that, and I know you probably realize this, when I was a kid, I went out with this photograph and found that rock. I really wanted to know where the old roadbed was. Here's a view from the same location looking the other direction. I don't have a good version of my slideshow, but here's some carriages on basically that same stretch of road on Big Round Top. And again, you can line all these up if you're really into it.
Can I ask you just for confirmation?
Sure.
That all the boulders that might have been there in the situation of these roads before they cleared
Yeah,
them,
they destroyed all those boulders, yeah.
ground up and used for the fill.
Probably used for the fill on the road. Now, this is the 1895 road. They probably were careful to go around it at that time. I don't know. None of the road builders are very careful about building roads. But you know what I'm kind of interested in is the fact that they don't build the roads on the same spot. Let's say you got to build a new road, they destroy another place. And then they need a new road, they destroy another place. They never seem to build on the same spot where they already destroyed once. Oh, here is an image. Were you hoping this came up, Eric? From Eric's collection, the Gettysburg Museum of History. And he showed me this photograph. I loved it. Because we're on the old avenue, and there's a sign that says Confederate Avenue. And we're pretty close to the intersection with Warren Avenue, but we're between the intersection of Warren Avenue and where the Big Round Top parking lot is. And there where these people are standing, where that car is, this is up the slopes of Big Round Top from the modern avenue. This is not the modern avenue. We're up the hill some, and then there was a Confederate Avenue plaque. And I never thought about the fact that all the road signs had to be moved and stuff when they built a new avenue. So one thing you can do is you can take this photograph and you can find that rock. And then if you find that rock, you know where the Confederate Avenue sign is. And, obviously I've been to the spot. I looked around. I can't find any remnant or the pole or anything of where the Confederate Avenue sign is.
Do you remember the format of that photo?
No. Is it negative? Did you have the negative?
Glass plate negative.
Oh, yeah, Eric says that was a glass plate negative that he got in his collection. But you can you see that's the same rock? That's what I do. I take a photograph with a rock in it, and I find a rock. Now, there was kind of easy, wasn't it? There's a sign that says Confederate Avenue. It's not always that easy. Here's a photograph from the top of Devil's Den, looking across the original Warren Avenue to the summit of Big Round Top. I don't even remember where my show goes from here. So, again, Big Round Top from Devil's Den. We're in the Slider Farm field looking at Big Round Top Tower. Here we are in the Valley of Death, and you can see at the bottom of this view the monument to Charles Frederick Taylor. Remember we talked about that in Move Monuments? Oh, speaking of Move Monuments, I had said in the program on Move Monuments that 2 markers for the 27th Connecticut were placed in 1879. And I found research that I had already done, but it now looks like they were actually placed in the ground in September of 1878. So the 2 markers to the 27th Connecticut and the monument to Fred Taylor and Strong Vincent were all placed in 1878, within a few months of each other. And here, of course, 1904, this is before the 1930s bridge with the dinosaur footprints on it. So this is the original bridge, which actually crosses the stream at a slightly different angle. And then it goes down the road there where there's a hairpin turn that cuts back across the side of the hill. I like this view of it. That car in the view, on the back wheel cover, it says Pathfinder, and it has an airplane on it. So I don't know how the Historical Society ended up with this view, but obviously this is like an advertisement for this guy's business. And can you imagine the cameraman waiting for the plane to get in the right place to snap the photo? That's not so easy during that time period. But, by this time, what's that, a 1930s car? So it could be a 1930s or 40s photograph. Remember, in my commercialism program, I showed the airport in the 1940s, but that had a different name than what's on the wheel here. Oh, and then I wanted to talk about one thing that's interesting about Big Round Top is that it's never really been perceived as part of the battle. And here, let me suggest this. During the War Department years, you had a tower that went to the top of the tower, and that path that went to the top of the tower went by the Union breastworks with Union monuments. And the road by the War Department came across the stone wall that was built by the Southerners during the battle. And both of those, the path to the top and the road that came by the base, were oriented to features associated with the fighting that occurred there. And then we rip out the path. And then we put the path in a different place. And it doesn't go by any monuments. And it goes up the side of the hill, and people don't like where it is. And then we make a nature trail on the side of the hill. We further delude the battle from it. But when the nature trail came out in the 1960s, and you see it was originally written by William C. Dara of Gettysburg College. His William Culp Dara. His mother's family, they were Culps. They were from here. And William C. Dara's daughter is a big supporter of the Adams County Historical Society in our bid, our building of the new museum here. So we're thinking we might have part of the museum named after William C. Darrell, great botanist. He was a paleobiologist who studied plant fossils. But here it is. I think if you look at the date, I think it's 1964. The trail comes out, and if you go up Big Round Top, there's a loop trail that goes all the way around it, and the trail stops at places like the Sphinx. And when I was a kid, I was all about the Big Round Top loop trail. When I brought friends to the battlefield, we'd always walk the trail. Not just because on the backside of Big Round Top there were lots of places that you could have parties without anybody knowing about it. But it was a fascinating place. I was really into the loop trail. And honestly, I don't know if I could tell you why they did away with the loop trail. They just stopped printing up the pamphlets and stopped sending people there. But used to walk around the trail, there were little signs that said, stop number 1, stop number 2. And you can still find, look, there's stop number 4 and stop number 5. You can still find them around that loop trail. And then you could get yourself a copy of that pamphlet online. They're available. You can download one online and walk around and take the loop trail and see things like the Sphinx. But the trail is almost abandoned. The signs that tell you what to look at are almost all gone. And occasionally in the pamphlet it'll tell you the tree in front of you is a hickory tree. And the tree's not there anymore. So really, the loop trail was at its height in the 1970s. And it is no more. So I think that's it. So if anybody has any questions about Big Round Top or some of the things we talked about, I'll be more than happy to answer the questions if you come up. But thanks for coming to the program.